Hi there, good people, and welcome to this maiden edition of the program, Me and My Mental Health. The program is opening today, and it's a program for you. You are discovering it today. And of course, the program that will guide you on the very important aspect of our lives, which is the mental health. And this program, I will be the facilitator, and we have a resource person who is a clinical psychologist in the person of Sister Jackie Atabong. Sister, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, brother.
Before we get set for our discussions, we would like to take a break. Then when we come back, we begin our discussion by discovering what is mental health. Let's take a break. Me and My Mental Health, a brand new program on DMR TV, beginning today. Sister, tell us a little bit about yourself in connection to me and my mental health.
Good evening, fellow viewers. I am Sister Jackie Atabong. I am a sister of St. Therese of the Child Jesus of Boya. I am a nurse by profession, a spiritual director, and a clinical psychologist. Me and My Mental Health is a program which will be brought to you through DMR TV to help you choose your best life, because your mental health has to do with your emotional being, the way you interpret things, the way you see life, your relationships with others, and the consequences of those relationships and emotions on your behavior. We are going to be discovering how our mental health, our mind, impacts our bodies and our lives. This program, Me and My Mental Health, is meant to help us explore different aspects of our lives so that we can choose our best life and choose the outcomes of our life.
Yes, Me and My Mental Health is going to guide us to know a lot of things about ourselves that we didn't know before. And we are beginning this program. That means every Wednesday, keep the rendezvous from 9 to 10 on television and from 7 to 8 p.m. on radio. And the program has come to stay. And as you heard Sister introduce herself and talk about the connections in her, that you see, she's a nurse, she's a spiritual director, or you call it directress, and she's a clinical psychologist. These three. Sister, what attracted you to this other aspect? When you're already a nurse, you're a spiritual director, and then you went to specialize again in clinical psychology.
Yes, a human person is a holistic person. You have the mind, the body, and the soul, and these things are interconnected. When one of them is not doing well, it affects the others. So if your mental health is not fine, it might affect your physical body, and if your physical body is not doing well, it will affect your social life, and it will also affect your mental health, even your spiritual life. So I was a nurse, and while working in the hospital, I got to realize that there were many people who came to hospital and they were sick. They go to the lab and all their laboratory tests are negative, but they're still very sick. And I got to realize that people have other things that are bothering them. Sometimes it's just a relationship problem at home with their husband. They're so stressed out that they are not able to take it anymore. And so their body immunity reduces, and then they feel so stressed and sick. So sometimes our social relationships affect our mental health just as much as our physical health. If you're having a chronic back pain, or you're maybe struggling with diabetes or some chronic illness, the tendency is that having lived with that for a long time, it might cause so much stress on you because you're having a chronic pain or a chronic disease. And when you have this disease, sometimes it might make you to feel depressed. And when you feel depressed and maybe anxious, it makes you not to sleep. When you don't sleep well, then you get grumpy. In the morning, your relationships are bad because you didn't rest well. Your mind is not settled. You get relationship problems with others. And when you get relationship problems with others, you may start finding yourself being isolated, and then you're anxious with other people. You distrust, or you have quarrels and with them, and this makes you again not to sleep well because you're worried about that. So you just cycle down and spiral down. So our physical health affects our emotional health, our mental health, just as much as our mental health affects our physical health.
Sister, before we go deep into that, let's just understand. Let's begin. I know that our viewers who are watching us now, they want to understand what is mental health, or what is mental health. What is health, and then what is mental health? Maybe you break like this so that we can understand.
Okay. Yes, health as defined by WHO is not just the absence of disease, but that you have a healthy physical body that can move around without you having pain and carry out your activities daily. You have good social relationships, healthy social relationships, and that you have good healthy mental health. And what is having a healthy mental health? Like I said, it's looking at how your mind impacts your body. Looking at mental health has 4 aspects. It has the way you look at things and interpret things. Because the way you look at things and interpret them affects your emotions. It brings out an emotion in you, and this emotion that comes and brings out a consequent behavior, and that consequent behavior affects your social relationships, and these social relationships in turn affect your mental health and maybe the way you interpret things again. So it's all in a cycle. And I'll give you an example for you us to understand what I'm talking about. I'll give a simple example that maybe you're walking into a room and you meet your friends, you meet people there, and as you're walking into the door, they burst out laughing. If they burst out laughing, you may look at it as if they are laughing at you, or maybe there's something about you that's not right. And if you think they're laughing at you or something about you that's not right, you may feel embarrassed, you may feel frustrated, you may feel shame, and that may cause you to walk away from them, which therefore means that there was an incident, laughing, which solicited an emotion, which is embarrassment, anger, sadness, and then those emotions elicited a behavior which made you to walk away, and therefore now you walked away from your friends. Now let's think of it in another way, that you walk into a room and people burst out laughing, and as they burst out laughing, you interpret that their laughter as that somebody had said something funny. If you interpret it as something that was funny, then you may ask the people, what did you say that was funny? And they may tell you what it is, and you may join them in laughing. Now, you can see that there are 2 different ways we interpreted it. The first time you interpreted it as they were laughing at you. The second time you interpreted it as somebody said something funny. So in the first one, when you interpreted it as somebody they were laughing at you, you felt embarrassed, sad, angry. But when you interpreted it as somebody said something funny, then you feel normal, or you feel normal, or you feel maybe interested, and then you walk towards them and ask what they were talking about. And when they tell you that, then you join them in laughter and you keep your relationship with them. But in the first case, you got embarrassed and you walked away. So you can see that the incident was the same, laughter, but the interpretation elicited different kinds of emotions. One was positive and one was negative. And when you had a negative interpretation, you had negative actions and you walked away. But when you had a positive interpretation, you had a positive action. So what I'm trying to say is that our mental health has to do with the way we interpret things, because we interpret things in different ways, and the ways in which we interpret things have consequences on us. Then the second thing about our mental health is it has to do with our emotions, our feelings, because our feelings dictate very often our behavior. If you feel sad, you're going to act in a particular way. If you feel happy, you act in a particular way. And then our behaviors now affect our social relationships. The way you relate with people, because of the emotions you've had, it has a consequence on your relationships. And those relationships eventually play back on your mental health.
What if actually they are laughing at you? The people, you heard them laughing, and then you get there, if they are truly laughing at you, or they refuse, you ask them, so we're not telling you. What should be your reaction?
So if they were laughing at you, what were they laughing about? What are they laughing about you? So because you can be laughing at me, and it's funny because there was something funny about me, and I can join you to laugh because of what you said. You were laughing at, maybe I dressed in a funny way, maybe it's the way I was walking or whatever. So depending on now, sometimes it could be maybe because of my self-esteem, and I'm sure of myself. You tell me that, oh, I was laughing because of the way you were walking or the way you dressed. I say, oh, that's funny, I can laugh with you. But usually people who have maybe low self-esteem or whatever, when you laugh at them, when you laugh at something, then they feel you're laughing at them, then they can't take it literally. They feel annoyed, angered by the laughter. So the way that you take people's responses also is something that affects your mental health, because your mental health is somebody who is balanced and who has a good mental health can accept challenges, laughters, and can laugh at themselves. But also, when you have a problem, you have a challenge with your mental health, you may not be able to laugh at yourself, and you feel that people are laughing at you to put you down. And it is the interpretation of that putting you down that makes you sad.
Is it right to get angry at people because they are annoying you?
Well, anger in itself is not bad. Our emotions are not bad, but it is what you do with the emotions that make them wrong or right. Anger, it's okay to be angry. And if you notice that you're angry, you say, now I'm angry. What do I do with my anger? What do I do with this emotion? I can say that, no, because I'm angry, I don't want to spill it out. I'm going to take in a deep breath. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to count 1 to 10. I'm going to do some activity. And when I have calmed down and I'm in my right senses, I'm going to talk about what angered me with the person who said whatever I interpreted. Because it is not okay for us to talk when we are angry or make decisions when we are angry. Because when you are angry, what happens is that your emotions overpower your reasoning. And when your emotions overpower your reasoning, then you're not able to make reasonable and objective decisions. So it is better not to make decisions or take actions when you are in any high emotion. When you're too happy, or when you're too sad, or when you're too angry, it's better not to make decisions until when you've calmed down, you feel that you can reason normally and clearly, then you act. So when you're angry, it's okay. But if you notice, say, now I'm angry, and you acknowledge that you're angry, then you take steps. I'll calm down before I make any decisions.
Now you've explained very well. I want to come back to it again so that our viewers can understand us very well. Make a relationship between emotion, feelings, mental health. In order to bring out this concept of mental health very well for us to understand.
Emotions come up very often, unconsciously, very fast, automatic, And our feelings are the interpretations of our emotions. What to interpret of something. And those feelings and emotions, which are very often words that are interchangeably used because they are very close to each other. One is the emotions come up as a reaction to something, and then but it is actually that reaction is because you have interpreted the thing in a particular way, and so you have these feelings, which you say emotion, your feelings and interpretation of your emotions. So they are very close to each other. But this, when you have interpreted this, your emotions now affects your mental health. It has a consequence on your behavior, and it affects your mental health because your behavior is going to affect the people around you, and it's also going to affect you. And so that affects your mental health because I've said your mental health has 4 aspects. It has your thinking and your interpretation, it has your emotions or your feelings, it has a consequent behavior, and then it has your interactions with people. And all those things intertwine to affect, to say whether you are in a good mental health state or not. If any one of them is not balanced, then you are not in a good mental health. So if you consistently have problems in your relationships, you have to check yourself and check whether your mental health. If you consistently have negative emotions, always thinking negatively, always thinking that other people are wrong and you are right, always blaming others and situations and not taking responsibilities for your actions, then you maybe have to consider, am I okay with my mental health? Then you should also realize that the way you interpret things, if you keep interpreting things negatively and this creates negative emotions in you, then you have to check yourself, because when you are in a balanced mental health state, you have positive emotions. You are able to take your challenges, you are able to take stress, and then you're able to live with those things without being sad or broken down by stressful situations. And then, like I said, you need to look at your relationships and your interconnections. See whether you can have good relationships and maintain good relationships over a period of time. All those are things that help you to measure your mental health state.
Sister, help us. Is there mental illness and mental health? Are they 2 different things?
Yes. Your mental health, like I'm saying, it's like your relationships, your emotions, the way you interact with people, the way you function in society. So when it becomes a mental illness, a disorder, it means we say it has a clinical significance. It means it has reached a stage where it starts affecting your relationships to a high level. You don't function properly anymore, and it affects maybe your recreational or school life. So when it starts interfering with your functioning, for instance, it's okay to have relationship problems with people. But if you have relationship problems that make you now not to be able to go to work or not to be able to work well with people, and it's creating a hell of problem there, then there's a problem. So when the situation comes to the point where it interferes with your relationships, with your work life, with your social life, we say if it passes a certain threshold, we say it is of clinical significance, and then we start calling it a mental illness.
Thank you very much. Now, in looking at our context, particularly Cameroon, talk about Cameroon that I know, why is it that mental health is often overlooked as compared to physical health? Is that's what's happening? You know that better. Someone who has worked in the hospital as a nurse, and then you are now talking as a clinical psychologist. Why is mental health often overlooked as compared to physical health in our context?
Yes, it's not just in our context. Over the years, medical health was prioritized, physical health was prioritized, and science has also developed so much so that there's a lot that has been discovered about physical health, that it is and has gone on for a longer time than mental health. People did not. It's only along the way that doctors started realizing that there are certain things that are, it's physically we don't see the cause of it, and then mental health came into place. But most especially for us here in Africa, we have very little notion about mental health. And mental health, we know also, is stigmatized, especially not just mental health, mental illness is stigmatized, and so people don't want to acknowledge it. And secondly, we have not been open to it. In a way, when we see mental health issues or mental illnesses, we tend to stigmatize and spiritualize them time and again, or we consider them taboos, and we either spiritualize or associate them with spirits or evil. And so we tend not to give mental health the exploration, the rightful place, because we don't even know that what is happening to us is due to our mental health. We have all been trained about physical health, and so we don't know that mental health is behind most of our physical health. For instance, we have many people who go to the hospital, they say, this is my high blood, I have high blood pressure, I have cardiac problems. But all of this is, the root cause of it might be a mental health problem. Somebody who is living in consistent stress because maybe they're working hard too much to make ends meet because of finances. Maybe they are living in a toxic relationship. You're living in a relationship at home in a marriage that is not working, and you just think you have to live in that situation for the rest of your life, and then you're under consistent stress. When you're under consistent stress, your body produces chemicals, neurochemicals, some of them like adrenaline. And when adrenaline is produced to a certain level, it keeps pumping your blood, and so it causes you to have high blood pressure. And when it causes you to have high blood pressure, it might also consequently give you cardiac problems. It might consequently lead to the rupture of blood vessels in your head that would lead to a stroke. But we think that we just go from the medications, and we don't, even when we are taking the medication, we don't go to resolve the underlying cause of the problem. Sometimes you are living in a toxic relationship or working in a toxic environment that is stressing you up. You need to get yourself out of that kind of a situation, or you need to find help to help you handle the things that you are not handling rightly to bring down your blood pressure. You have gastritis. People take a lot of medication for gastric illnesses, which has mental health, for which mental health is the foundation of it. So it is important for us to know, why am I having this pain? What is it? Where is it coming from? And that is where our mental health comes in, to help you identify the cause of it and to deal with the cause of it, so that when you've dealt with it, your blood pressure goes down on its own.
Now, you mentioned something. You talk about mostly the causes of mental health coming from the way we interpret and things and from our emotions. What about you're working very hard and you are interpreting it positively? Can it still cause you a mental health situation that could lead to mental illness?
Yes, when you're working very hard and you're not resting, that has a consequence on your physical body as well. Because if your heart can only take so much of whatever you're doing. So if you're working, every machine that works can work itself to a halt. So if you're working very, very hard and you're not resting, and then your body gets tired, and your body will start producing stress hormones. Because the body cannot no longer, because the body is under a certain condition, and these chemicals also influence your blood, your brain, and all the like. So working too much can lead to mental health problems, just as mental health problems can lead to physical health problems.
What are some common misconceptions about mental health, particularly in our own environment?
Well, I think in our environment, lots of people think that they consider mental health is as a taboo. Like your head don't shake. That's what they say. Your head don't shake. It's a decrease. That word, we don't use it in mental health. Mm-hmm. But, people feel that if you say that you have a mental health issue, it means that you're off your mind. No, you can have mental health issues which are just stressful issues, you might become depressed or whatever, and you help and you get out of it. It could be a phase, but if you don't help yourself, then you live from maybe anxiety to depression to maybe even suicide, or to manic issues, and you get to schizophrenia, which is like when you're the extreme of your mental health issue.
It's what we call madness. It is mad.
Yes, that is, if you don't deal with it, you can get to that point. But a lot of mental health issues are just regular life issues that we can deal with. And for instance, in Europe, there's so many people who have mental health issues, and they take medication, they go for therapy, and they live their lives normally. Whereas here, if you say that you have anxiety or you are depressed, everybody will say, don't even marry from that family. That those people, they have a mental health issue that is
still
not
madness.
Yes, if you have any mental health issues, people just say don't get married from that family. So people, we and then sometimes also we spiritualize mental health issues. People have real mental health issues. You feel depressed, and instead of going to see somebody who will help you to find the underlying cause of your depression, you want to pray it away. You think that when you go to prayers, when you are anointed and so on, it's going to go away. Well, when you go for prayers, prayer has its own part to help with mental health, because lots of people get a lot of support for their mental health from their spiritual lives, because they believe that God is the one who would help them. So prayers also has its own way of helping people who have mental health, but prayer, you cannot pray away all your mental health issues. Some of your mental health issues need you to be able to talk about them, to be able to get to the root of it, to see that, am I misinterpreting things in my life? Have I learned some things, and am I looking at life from a negative point of view? How can I change it? Because if you change those aspects, then you don't have those problems, and then you don't have to spend vigils praying away your problems.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue these very interesting discussions that is revealing us a lot of things. Let's take a break. Just tuning in, the program is Me and My Mental Health, and we're trying to understand the concept of mental health. Sister, is there a difference between emotional health and mental health?
Well, not really, because your emotional health has a consequence on your mental health, and I told you that your emotions is one part of your mental health. So when you have positive emotions, you can say you have good mental health. When you have negative emotions, and which are persistent, it would lead to poor mental health. So emotions is one aspect of your mental health, just as your perception and interpretation of things affects your mental health, is another aspect of your mental health, and your relationships with yourself and with others also is another aspect of it. So those are just aspects of it.
Let me ask another kind of question. Can someone have good mental health but still struggle emotionally, or vice versa?
Well, our emotions come and go, because everything that happens to us have emotions that come with them all the time. We interpret, and it's as a consequence of the way we interpret the things. So one of the things is that your mental health, you have negative emotions, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is when it becomes persistent. When you have emotion, what we encourage is that name your emotions and tame them. Now I feel sad. So what is making me sad? I go to it to understand that I'm sad because maybe I got a bad news about something from somebody. So I said, okay, now that is it. How do I want this to affect me? Because I've gotten this bad news, do I want it to affect all my relationships, or I'm going to find a way to bracket it such that I can still have a good relationship with people even though I feel sad about it. I can tell my friends that, oh, this is what has happened to me, so that they know and they understand when I'm dealing with them why I am sad. But if you, so what we need to do about our emotions is to name them, to own them, and then to decide what you want to do with them.
Now, what is the dividing line between spiritual issues, mental health issues, physical issues, in such a way that maybe somebody may be treating an issue as a spiritual issue, and then in the long run it might be a physical issue, or it's a mental health issue, or someone is treating a mental health issue, meanwhile it's a spiritual health issue. You are cutting across this spiritual, mental, physical. Where do we draw the line between these areas?
Yes, so it might be difficult to say I'm drawing a line because we are a whole person. You know, a human being is holistic, and you have one aspect which is emotional, you have the physical, you have the spiritual. So we are trying to separate them, but they are all in one person and they're so intertwined, you know, that you cannot say that this is the line here. But you can be able to differentiate. And I think that is one of the things that led me to study
clinical psychology
and take on some classes in spiritual direction to learn about that, because I noticed that it is one whole person. And when people come to talk with you or talk to you, they will talk to you about what is happening to them in their lives. And it may have a spiritual aspect, it may have a psychological aspect, it may have a physical aspect. So I felt that being a spiritual directress, or having some idea on spiritual direction, and as I'm a nurse already and a psychologist at the same time, it makes me a one-stop shop. Because when you study just about psychology, they'll tell you just the psychological part of it. In spiritual direction, they tell you just the spiritual direction part of it. In nursing, they tell you just the physical part of it. But now I'm able to combine all of them together, and I see that it's just one coin with different sides. If you have a cube, you have the different sides of it. So when you're working with people, you can identify the different aspects. Because if somebody comes with me that they have insomnia, they're not able to sleep at night, they have high blood pressure, those are physical signs. Now I'll go to look at where is this coming from? Why are you not able to sleep? Are you not able to sleep because you have a wound on your hand, or it's because you have a problem that is stressing you up, or it's because your work is stressing you up? Why are you not able to sleep? So that is where it starts coming into the psychological part of it, and your social relationships. And then it might be you have maybe it's because your marriage is breaking up and you are a Christian. As a Christian, you are married in church. So that is the spiritual part of it that is coming in now. That you are a Christian who is married in church, your marriage is breaking up, and you think that this marriage has to work because that is what you believe and that is what you want. So you have that assumption that comes with your spiritual, your Christian life, that marriage is forever. And then now you are in a marriage which maybe is incompatible, and you think it must be forever. So now you're struggling with all of that. So we have to look at it from the different aspects of it. Is it working? Is it not working? Is it workable or is it not workable? And you may be now debating now, how am I going to, if it looks like it's breaking up and I don't want it to break because that is my goal, my spiritual life, my belief, an assumption that I have, my core belief. And your core belief does not match with your reality in life. So it's causing a tension within you. So we have to find a way to sort out this tension. Like there was a case could be like this. A family that had a child, they were very good Christians working in the church, and everybody knew them as a good Christian family, and they were doing things well. And then they had a son who was a drug addict. And this child was doing all kinds of things, and then eventually died of overdose. Now, these parents did not feel that they did not want the church to know that their child was that bad and was struggling with all of this. So, but this child had once in their lifetime had been told that the child had a heart problem. So now these parents decided now to tell the church that their son died of a heart attack, because they had the assumption that as a Christian family, their children are supposed to be well behaved and are supposed to achieve in life in this way. But now, when their Christian, their spirituality did not match with their reality, they had a crisis, and that created a tension. That now the wife, they were so adamant, so they were telling a lie to themselves and they're telling a lie to their church, and they had to live with that anxiety. And that anxiety was dealing with them now, even in their marriage, because sometimes the woman was maybe a stronger person holding that, and the man was like saying, let's speak the truth or whatever. So you come to see that sometimes your spirituality, your psychological life, and your reality and your assumptions are all different. So when you come, now we could be able to see where is it coming from and how can we deal with this. And then sometimes also you have psychological problems that look like some spiritual problems. For instance, a child who has been abused multiple times might be having some hysteric hallucinations, which might appear to be like spiritual attacks. So a child might be crying and saying that they're saying things or whatever. So you might be seeing it as if it's the devil that is talking to the child, or there's a evil spirit in that person, whereas it is a psychological problem because of the multiple traumas that they've had. So sometimes you can have this, it's a fine line to be able to identify what is spiritual, what is from trauma, what is physical.
Let me come back to you, sister. How does refusal to admit the fact that the child of that family died of drugs, how could that lead to a mental illness issue or a mental crisis issue?
So this, let me say, given this, like you refuse that your child has, so you're living in anxiety all the time, because you go to church and you're lying to people. You have a good funeral, everybody was sympathetic that this child has died of a heart attack, whereas you know that this child did not die of a heart attack. This child died of drug abuse. So now you're refusing to accept a situation. Now that creates tension in the house, because one of the persons felt that they should say the truth, and another one feels that we should not say the truth. And then when they sit now to mourn the child, what are they mourning? Are they mourning the truth, or they're mourning a lie? So now, depending on whether people and some of the other things that added to it was not just like, it's like people had assumptions. Some assumptions that we have also, which also because it's not just one thing that causes a mental health issue. Things come together. For instance, you have an assumption that children should bury their parents, not parents burying their children. So now, if you lose a child, you have to deal with that assumption that has been like swept under the rug. Now your assumption is broken. Your assumption is no longer true. That your child is supposed to bury you, but now you are burying your child. So that is an added stress to the fact that their child died of drug, that they are not admitting that this child was supposed to be living a more decent life than the child lived, and then to a lie that they're telling the church. So now you have multiple layers of things, one adding to another. And if you already had maybe something like anxiety or depression, it might only exacerbate it. It might only make it get worse. And sometimes the tension even between maybe this couple, the tension of that affects their relationships also because of that incident. So you can see how an accumulation of several layers of things come up, and if you don't break them down, you may just discover that you are not getting on well in the house, things are not moving right. But it is through maybe therapy that you come to break down, how did we get here and how is it affecting me right now.
I mean, the underneath is that we need to be real.
Correct.
Not living a lie.
You cannot be living a lie to yourself. If something has happened to you, even if it is shameful that you don't want it, you have to find a place where you accept to yourself that this truly is what has happened. And now what do I do with it? Because if you keep telling yourself a lie, it's like you're trying to press something down. You're suppressing something, and you're putting all your hands to push it down, and you cannot keep it down. Therefore, if your hands you're pushing down, then your hands are not free to do other things. So you're trying to suppress something, and therefore you're not open to other things, because now you have to be careful about what you say to people in church, in case you release the truth. So you have to be on guard all the time. So now you start being on guard with people, then people notice that you are on guard with them. So when you are not truthful to yourself, you tend to be on guard. You're watching what you're saying, how you're behaving with people, and then one thing leads to another, and you can never really suppress things. They'll come out some other way.
And people continue to ask questions and say, how did he die? Sometimes they come, how did he die? Sorry, I may ask. And in the long run, you are telling a lie and you find yourself unsettled.
Correct. That's what it is. The unsettlement gives you anxiety, and prolonged anxiety might lead to anxiety in other areas or might lead to depression.
Sister, help us. Bring me an interplay between these three terms: mental health, stress, and trauma. How did they connect?
Okay. Now, let's say trauma. When trauma occurs, trauma is, we call it, it's a wound in the heart. When trauma occurs, trauma means something serious has happened to you that overwhelms you. For instance, it could be an accident that happens to you or to somebody close to you, something that overwhelms you, that your internal resources, that is your own inner strength, is not able to take it. And then you don't have enough support also from the outside to help you accept it. For instance, maybe you suddenly lose somebody in a ghastly accident that is close to you. That is traumatizing to you. Sometimes you may have the internal strength to say that, oh my gosh, well, it happens to everybody. Well, if God allowed it to happen to, then it is God's will. So you have some internal strength from your faith that helps you to accept it. Maybe that child is your only child, the child who was your hope in life, the child whom you are looking forward to, whatever. So that child dies suddenly. You may say that, oh, this is too much for me. I cannot take it. God is not existing. He existed, he would not have done this to me. So now you discover that you don't have an inner strength to take it. Then maybe people around you are not there to support you enough. You find yourself alone. So that puts you under. So that is when you have a wound in your heart. So something that wounds is like there's a something that wounds you, so you feel like it's hurting you so bad. And this hurts now. When you are in a state of hurt like that, it causes stress. Because when you are in this state of stress, your body now produces what we call adrenaline. And so when it produces a lot of this now, when it produces adrenaline, then it puts you in a state of fight or flight. So when you are under stress, you are now looking at, how do I protect myself? Am I running? Am I facing it? Or am I collapsing? There are three things that happen when you're under stress. You may either fight it, you run away from it if you cannot, or you collapse, you freeze. So this incident might cause you to have one of those three things. So if for instance, this happened to you, somebody dies like that, so you tend to be struggling with it, fighting with it. And when you're fighting with it, your body produces what we call adrenaline. And when it produces adrenaline, it puts you in a state of stress. You are now watching because you are trying to fight something. So you are ready to spank, to run, or to fight. So when you are consistently in a state of fight or flight, then many things happen to you. The way you look at life, the way you hear things, because it changes even the frequency of your hearing and your seeing. So you begin to see a lot of danger in life. So because your child died in an accident, each time you want to enter a car, you are afraid that, oh, maybe. So you are in a state of fight and fear all the time. And that consistent state of fear now sends out other hormones in your body that makes you to be ready to fight. And so you become your tendency to become aggressive towards others. You get easily irritated. You get impatient. That affects your relationships.
Is that state stress now?
Stress and excessive stress now.
Cause a wound in your heart?
No, the excessive stress, I told you the incident causes a wound in your heart. Yes, now this incident now puts you in a state of stress because adrenaline is produced now to say, okay, I have to fight or fly away from this. So your body is ready to take action. And when your body is ready to take action, you are ready to pounce on whatever or run away. And so that is not just for that incident. With other people around you also, people say things, you easily get irritated. Somebody says something, as I said, it changes even the frequency of your sight and your hearing. You hear more things that have to do with danger. You see more things that have to do with danger. So you are permanently in a state of stress. And when you are in a state of stress, there's something we call neuroception. People in your environment pick it up from you. You are sending out stress and people pick it up also. So you tend to irritate people. And people also respond to you in a state of stress because we are sending them out stress hormones. And so when they pick it up from you, so you see yourself now in a state of stress with people. You easily get irritated and you easily irritate people. And when that happens, it breaks your relationships. Then your relationships you find yourself being isolated.
Social well-being broken.
Yes. You find yourself being isolated. You find yourself that somebody says something to you calmly, you are only hearing it as a problem. Everybody in the society now becomes a problem to you.
And the cycle continues.
The cycle continues. And so that is how you get stressed up. And if it is consistent, we say you live in a toxic relationship, a toxic state, then you start having other mental health issues associated with it.
Sister, I would have loved to ask you to tell us now, whether there are some parameters you can use to measure, to know whether you like this, I'm sitting like this, I'm in a state of mental illness. Many of us do not know. And let me tell you that all these things, beautiful things you are saying, so many of our audiences and many of our hearing for the very first time and learning. So our time is not there again, and time is finished. I want to say that the next edition of the program, our viewers, please come and Sister will guide us. When we finish that program, we'll go and test ourselves. She will give us guidelines on how to know whether we are mentally ill or we are mentally well. I hope that I'm right.
Yes. So like I said, whether you're in a good state of mental health, you're in a good mental health state. And mental illness, I'm saying, is when you become dysfunctional.
Yes.
But you could still be a normal functioning person. You have subclinical standards of mental health issues. For instance, if your relationships, you are constantly in relationship problems with others, you need to check yourself.
Thank you all viewers of DMR TV. This beautiful program in its maiden edition has come to an end. I'm sure you enjoyed the program. If you did enjoy the program, every Wednesday from 9 to 10 p.m. and on radio from 7 to 8 p.m. is me and my mental health. And I'll always be there as a facilitator and a resource person who is loaded with a lot of knowledge. Sister Jackie Atabong will always be with me. God bless you. And goodbye. No, before we say goodbye, say a last word. You know, today, Boya Diocese is celebrated the peak of its 75th anniversary. And I'm still basking here with the medal of decoration. Say a last word.
Yes, before I say my last word, I would like to say that you should make your mental health your priority. Because your mental health is a fundamental source of the way you look at life, the way you're going to enjoy life, the trajectory, the outcome of your life. With your mental health, you can choose your best life. You can choose what you want for yourself, and you're going to attract it. And for the Diocese of Boya, which is my home diocese as well, I wish all of us a wonderful 75 going forward celebration. We are going to be celebrating the whole year, I believe. And even though this is the peak celebration we had today, which was a very beautiful celebration, I that this milestone will be a stepping stone to even greater heights. And with that, I want to congratulate our bishop for his hard work, for all that he has done and achieved within 5 years of his stay in Boya Diocese. But he has stood, like it was said, on the shoulders of other bishops and other lay Christians and catechists and lay faithful who have toiled to keep our faith going. So I want to congratulate and thank God for all these lives, and for those who were recognized today for their work in the diocese,
Like myself.
including you, brother, and others. I encourage you to continue to work for the diocese, to work for the people of God, to work for God, so that we continue to proclaim the good news to the whole world.
Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you and bye. Was it 1 hour?